Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're on example 2, and this one is not that interesting. It only has 3 critical points, but we're obviously looking at the horizontal stretches and compressions. So in this case, the k value is 2 for this first example, and the k is 0.5 for the second example. Our class has already told us that when k is 2, this is a horizontal compression by a factor of a half, and this k of 0.5, this is a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2, so it's inversely related. So a lot of you realize again, from our first example, and from the class, the y components aren't going to be affected. So that's going to be 0, that's going to be 4, that's going to be 0. And we'll just do this one first. So this 2 means we take this x component, negative 2, and divide it by 2. Or you do the reverse, negative 2 times a half. So there's a couple ways of doing it. Either divide by this k value or multiply by its inverse or reciprocal. Nonetheless, negative 2 divided by 2, that's negative 1. 0 divided by 2, that's 0. And 4 divided by 2, that's 2. And don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen at home and for the people in class, I'll give you guys the overall arcing equation of the mapping rule that will help you with the A, K, P, and Q. That's why we're just exploring them separately, but when we combine them, it would make more sense. But back to this, a lot of you realize at this point, negative 2 and 0 becomes now negative 1 and 0. Half of 0 at 4, well, notice it's an invariant point because it's on the y-axis, so it doesn't get affected. And then this 4 and 0 goes to 2, 0. So now that you can see, this is the answer that you have. It's gotten horizontally compressed, even though this is a 2. And that's what, ladies and gentlemen at home, that's what you're also finding, right? So it's inversely related. Let's just pause here for a second. Any questions about this first example? I wish there was a 4th point. Like there should be a 4th one that's a little bit more interesting, so that you can see it better. But that's fine. We're using the package. We're okay. For the last example for today, notice we talked about this is a horizontal stretch. So again, the y components will still stay the same, 0, 4, 0. But again, we're going to take that negative 2 and divide it by 0.5, or take that negative 2 and times it by 2. Either way, whatever way is easier for you to process at home. Negative 2 divided by 0.5, that's 4. 0 times it by 2, or 0 divided by 0.5, that's still 0. That's our answer. And then 4 divided by half, or 4 times 2, that's 8. So one more time, this negative 2, 0 becomes negative 4, so it gets stretched at this point. This one stays the same, and this 4 gets stretched too. Extend that. 8. And from the white one to the orange one, it got stretched horizontally, even though the k value is 0.5. One more time, the argument for us before we end for today. Why do we show this with quadratics? Well, because with quadratics, a horizontal stretch for a parabola, and if we just drew one out really quickly, horizontal stretch for a parabola, like this one's been stretched compared to this. Some students will say, but this also looks like it's being vertically compressed. Everyone see that? Well, horizontal stretch is the same thing as or similar to a vertical compression. That's why we rarely used it in grade 10. In fact, we don't use the word horizontal stretching. But now with this weird thing, this white function, a lot of you realize you can't do it. And that's why, again, I use the analogy like maybe in the fun house, maybe see in the house of mirrors or something like that. You get the chubby kids or the skinny kids or the mirrors or the optics like that. That's what we're talking about, transformations. So to recap really, really quickly, and I'll do this over here. The summary equation, I know there's an example 3 in it. Let's see if you guys do it at home. The summary mapping technique is as follows. I'm going to turn this over. Sorry, Mark. Oops, sorry. I like doing this. is divided by k, plus or minus qp, whatever that horizontal shift is, and a times y plus or minus q. And notice the order of operations. On your package, it does say like do stretches first, then reflections, then shifts. But ladies and gentlemen, you're my students, so this is really, really good. We do stretches before shifts. And if you go in order, how it's written, A and K first, then P and Q. It shouldn't look in order, actually. Should be something. Okay. If you have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, at home and anything like that from our class right now, feel free to ask us in our synchronous classes.